evening and welcome to the June 18th America Rescue Plan Act Committee. I'll call the meeting to order at 5:01. And first order of business is to review our agenda minutes, or excuse me, our minutes from June 13th. Mary sent out. Thank you, Mary.
They look fine to me.
Yeah. Take a motion.
I move to accept the minutes from our, was it June?
June
13th. meeting
Second.
As presented.
Great, motion and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, great. Thank you so much. Great job. All right, and next up, we have to review the funding requests. So,
I have, you want me to put the ARPA tracker?
yeah, I will say, I do feel like I'm a little,
Hold on. Have it somewhere. Here it is. Let
perfect.
me share it to the Zoom.
Great. Oh, I should probably let other people know who's on the call. We have our consultants, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
so we have Jennifer Thompson and Nicole Carita.
Good job. So we're not deliberately not showing video. It's not letting us show video. It says the host has to let us show video, but we're here. We're both here.
Thank you. We would
Thanks.
prefer not to be on video, so if you don't want.
I'm fine with that being on video. I just didn't want you to think I was intentionally not putting it on.
Remember the
here.
team Be on a conference call.
I know.
Sometimes I
I
miss.
want to let their video.
Maybe if you unclick
I think you should be able to start video now. Yeah.
Nicole.
There you are. Welcome. Great. All right. So,
So, Madam Chair, can I?
yeah, you definitely
Thank
can.
So I think there's two ways we can do this. We can either go line by line through the ARPA list, or I created a spreadsheet that's different than this, that shows what, I know this is gonna be self-serving, what I would fund. And maybe we could start there and work backwards, because it's a shorter list.
Mhm.
So there's things on there that I think everyone's gonna say, yeah, that's a no-brainer. And there's things on there that you're gonna go, no, I don't like that. And then we can back it right out of there and put something else in its place from the list. Is that,
I like that idea. I mean, it's not a done deal. We can certainly see
Right,
what we
absolutely.
recommend, because I feel like we need a little focus and some recommendations from people in town besides.
that's kind of what I was thinking, is rather than look at this huge list.
Yeah.
So let
That'd be
me,
great.
let me share that then. Okay. So this top box is what we've already voted to allocate. Along with the deduction of balance. This is our full allocation, and this is what we have left after what we did. Okay. Any questions on what we've already expended? This is my recommendation list based on two things. One is think projects that I'd like to see happen that I don't really have a great funding source for, or I think would be a little bit of a burden, or things that seem to creep out in the survey as well, right? So kind of a hybrid. So do you want me to just go down my list with my rationale and then? So the first one is the joint water project that we talked about. That's the one on Westboro Road. It's a joint project between the Grafton Water District, Tufts University, and the town. So our 500,000 would go into the water main project on Westboro Road, because we have a funding timeline that we'd have to do. So our money would go first, and then Tufts and Grafton Water Districts are secondary to that. And then the two of them would continue their work on to Willard Road as a part of this infusion of cash. But in theory, our money would just go to Westboro Road.
Sorry, Evan, did you already say how much the whole project is?
So the water main on Westboro Road, 600,000.
Okay.
But with the monies that are promised from the Grafton Water District and Tufts, it's way more than 100,000. I think it's like another $500,000 that they've pledged. So our 500 would go towards, 500 of the 600,000, because we need to spend by a certain date. And then they would fund the 100,000 and then take what they've already allocated and push it off into Willard Road to keep that going. So if you think of them as two projects, the whole project is, was it 1.2 million?
Okay.
So, but our 500 would be upfront. This is something that I've heard a ton from the seniors, and this is the redoing of our parking lot up here. And so some of that would result in, one, it's a better surface for them to get to the accessible ramps. But also, I think there's probably some things we can do to make it so that the seniors have a little bit more of a sheltered parking spot, and then the parents would shuffle around the outside of that, something along akin to that. The 500,000 is a little bit high for just resurfacing. I've also included estimates to plumb for electric car charging stations, which is just expensive because we have to plumb through the building and then stub it out. And then we would go for grant opportunities for the charging stations themselves in several different places here. Any questions on?
What's the school part of it?
Well, the schools are in here,
Like
in this building, so they would, if, so the schools have their offices
Oh, the
down here.
parking, I'm sorry.
It serves
Your
everybody,
department, yeah.
right, just the parking lot, yeah, not the,
Sorry, yep.
just who would benefit from it.
Are we talking about down in front as well, like PD cable or just this?
I was doing just this. We can certainly talk about if that's the prudent direction to go. I know you've mentioned it to me before.
Yeah, because if we could grab more parking down there. When he has classes, we could use this part of the parking lot for our people, to open more spots for the seniors or something like that,
Yeah, you're gonna do it right,
Sure.
right? No,
Yeah.
seriously. No, I mean, seriously,
No,
if you're
I-
gonna spend the money,
Right.
you have
Yeah.
everybody here.
Get it.
Well, and the other thing I want to also keep in mind is that, so that's, this doesn't have to, let's say we're gonna do the whole project, maybe not all of it is funded by ARPA, right? So 500,000 comes out of ARPA, and then we use whatever supplementary, whether that's free cash or whatever other funding mechanism we want to look at. So that's something to consider too, as we look at this.
How many charging stations did you say you would run for?
I didn't really get that far. I basically, to be honest with you, I added 100,000 to what I thought it was gonna cost.
Okay.
I think it's gonna be far less than that, just to stub out to where they've gotta be. But there's also other infrastructure underground around this building that I don't know about fully. So until we actually get somebody here and giving us proper numbers on. What I would like to have is 6.
Okay.
2 on this side, 2 on this side, and 2 down on the end by the seniors. So we get senior, electric senior vans or something. Some pretty cool technology coming out now. And it's really actually only, I don't have to get into the weeds, it's only 3 stubs, because each one has 2 at the end. Any other questions on that? I'd like to see us move 50,000 in ARPA dollars to the Grafton Food Bank. They're currently serving 160 families. And in my conversations with the food bank board, they have iterated that basically they would take that money and put that into their reserve account and draw off that for quite a long time, I think. So it'd be a really good way to set them up for future success. This is the one that'll probably be the most controversial part of the conversation. So I'm going to jump to a separate slide and show you what's in that before we. So this is, oh, let me make it bigger, sorry. So this is what premium pay for the responder segment, and what I would call it, would be. So you would have to have been employed between March 20th, March of 2020 and June 30th, 2021 to be considered in that premium pay allotment. These are generic numbers. This is the cap that it would be in each department, because if you look at the actual numbers of people that were here but are no longer employed or came on at the end, so this is about where we'd be. So there's 21 people in GPD, our 4 maintenance people that were employed during that time period that do all of the cleaning and disinfecting, 4 dispatch positions. And I put 50 for call fire. I think that call fire probably has less than that for people that actually responded to calls. But I didn't want to actually go through all of that effort if we're not going to do it. So it would be south of 50 But probably, I'm gonna guess probably in the 35 range of actual active members during that time. Any questions on?
I'm assuming like you've looked at other towns and what they've done and similar comparable, yeah.
Yeah, so the highest I found is for PD was 7,500. Was in the town of Warren, I believe. And then the lowest ones I saw that actually did this was about 1,500 per officer, and then variations of that. But I'm sure that I'm sure that at this point, there's a whole bunch of different variations of how this looks. And whether we wind up doing it at all.
How did you come up with the breakdown? So why does police get more than fire?
So I did that because fire is a call force and their pay is not, it's not like a full-time, it's not a full-time gig.
And dispatch, because presumably they weren't in any sort of.
They would come in, they've got a disinfected workplace, they would stay in there by themselves, a little bit sheltered. Again, this is me throwing numbers at a list to start a conversation. You wanna change the numbers, we can change the numbers. You wanna put something else in its place, we can do that too. So,
How does the group want to, I mean, we've been going line by line. Does anybody have any questions or discussion on this? Or do we want to wait till we see everything at the end and open it up?
I mean, I'll just say I'm for the notion of it. So, totally.
I'm gonna struggle on the school end, or I think we are gonna struggle, just take maintenance, obviously, I don't have any police, I don't have fire, I don't have dispatch, but we certainly have a maintenance team, with custodian team that did
yeah,
every, same
Absolutely.
timeline, same everything.
Yeah.
And they're not getting anything.
right. How many employees do
A
you?
lot. Say 34 when you throw in all the custodians.
Okay.
And then if you did give the, because I'm not even advocating for
Yeah.
that, it's just that super slippery slope. Once those 34 got something, you
Right.
better believe the nursing department. is-
Yep, yep.
And then the teacher, before you know it, it's gonna be.
And was there any premium pay during all of it for
Zero.
anyone in schools? I mean, I
No.
know my daughter didn't get
Yeah,
anything, which is
zero.
private.
And I would also ask,
got-
what about
No, she didn't.
your
but she's
senior
private.
center that was still working? I mean, I know they were supposedly, well, they were in, so that is, I
Right.
thought what but this is between the 30th of June 21, so we were back in buildings.
Yep,
in the
absolutely.
schools,
So-
And your senior center was doing, I mean, so I guess to me, my concern is, and this is not I don't want it to come off as they don't deserve. I think everybody deserves amazing things for
Right.
what has been accomplished during the pandemic. My concern is, well, why just these people? And why not other? I mean, I think mental health tolls on some of the people that were still working, whether they were in their house, I think affected even just as much as health.
Right,
So I mean, cable was still going strong. They were filming us, so I guess I have some strong reservations about this only because of the equitability.
What I,
so I chose these to keep the locus small.
But I think to Jay's point, it's hard to keep the locus small when word gets out. That's gonna be tough to sell.
When we last talked about, and I could be misremembering this, and one of the things we talked about was if we did do it, make it first responders.
Yep.
Right or wrong, put that aside.
Yep.
That at least, I don't have anybody in the school department that
Mm.
is a first responder.
Right.
But obviously, I get why, but we're pushing that.
Yep.
With the maintenance dispatch.
Yeah, I think dispatch, generally speaking, qualify as first responders as
Okay.
far as how your public
Under
safety
that,
sphere
sure.
works.
Okay.
But I get it, and again, this is a jump off point, so.
Yeah, no, and I know
and-
there were people, like obviously, Emery is for it, so there's also, we can vote, and if the majority want to move it forward, it's up to the select board at the end of the day anyway.
Right. Right, and
And
if, sorry, go ahead.
sorry, I was just gonna say, for it in part, because my understanding is that there's a lot of other towns that have done this, and I've heard from, folks here in these jobs that there's a little of that, right?
There's a little of that, there's certainly some union influence on the requests. And I think that's the same in other communities as well. Again, this is a starting point. So, I mean, if the conversation shifts to, you know, nursing and custodial, then I think we figure out what we want the budget to be, and we work the numbers into some equitable way to divvy out the nut that we set aside for that. So let's say I'm gonna just pick a number. Let's say we said we're gonna do $250,000. And we've got to figure out how to equitably distribute $250,000 across people that were not able to just be remote or however that works. Then we'd have to divvy it up that way. Otherwise, I think you're right. We probably have to go to, you know, first responders.
If we went with this type of model, this might not be a fair question, but I have a good sense of where school employees would fall on it. Do you have a sense of where other town employees,
So,
how that would be perceived?
Also
so
the DPW staff.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
highway, Parks and Cemetery, so they were.
Yep.
Every
They were there.
So, yeah. Yeah, so
I had a different list this morning. This list is scaled back.
Yeah, no, and this is difficult, and that's why
So-
we're discussing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And partially because where does it end?
Right.
So we'll put a pin in this and then come back to it. And I also want to note, we could vote other things from the list and come back to this again. If we pick another, like, we have a different chunk of money or whatever we decide. I
Yeah,
don't think it needs to be
okay.
all or nothing.
Well, because I'm thinking, I mean, we wanted to raise the pot for this, then we have to take up other stuff off the other
Yep,
part.
yep. Well, pickleball definitely loses that.
So for school folks,
Ooh.
if the maintenance
No
wasn't
track
on
road.
here,
Yeah.
would that make a difference?
It just, in my mind, it would be, if you take maintenance out, then you can frame it around first
Right,
responders. We don't have any of those.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, you might not agree with it, but it's not nearly as messy.
But for those guys, you know, I mean, they were the most exposed.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Other than the people, you know, other than carrying somebody out of their house fire-wise, they were here
Right.
cleaning up after everything.
Yeah, and obviously
Same,
our nurses who are
right,
dealing with
right.
the kids that do have COVID day in, day out. They've got a pretty good argument.
How many nurses do you have?
7.
So let's say you did that, so 34 plus 7 is 41. So I mean, even if we adjusted our numbers to be more equitable at like 1,000 apiece for anybody that falls under whatever category, you could still, I mean, that's still only $41,000.
No, we could,
You know.
you better believe teachers that
Yeah.
don't get
Oh,
to
yeah.
say,
Yeah.
I had the kid before we
Before
walked
they-
down to the
Right.
nurse.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, true.
Ugh.
Pandora's box.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, that's,
definitely feels that way.
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, we'll circle back.
All right, we'll circle back. I mean, I'm glad we're discussing it though,
Yeah.
because it has come up before and,
Yeah, and I did make a promise to
yeah,
staff that I would
yeah.
make the pitch.
Good.
All right, so, excuse me, see, now I gotta get maintenance in here.
Right?
Okay, so here's one Grafton Common. Need to do a study on the exterior renovation for we're gonna have to go after CPC money. This is money that would be held aside for just creating the specification. Okay, the next one, any questions on that? That's just like what type of mortar, which bricks, and what the windows need to come out. You have to do all that work before you go out to bid. That would create the bid docs for that. South Grafton Community House, I tried to do this under CPC. It did not go the way that I wanted to. This would redo most of the exterior deficiencies that are at that site currently.
And there's also a part of that is there's a veterans place, a place. for-
That's out there. Yep,
Yeah.
there's the
Yeah.
VFW is there and
Yeah,
the
thank you.
Nipmucks.
Yeah. It holds a lot.
Yes,
I mean,
it does. Yep.
it's a building that I think could use.
It could use some love, yeah. It's looking rough. This next one is, so PD and fire share a radio system, DPW and sewer on that too.
No,
on
it's all we
limited
have
basis.
is just
Really?
truck to truck, which
Truck,
which
okay.
works.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
So PD and fire radio system, 2006 vintage. This 650 number represents 450 requests from the police department and a $200,000 request from the fire department for radio upgrades. Both of them have asked for monies to be spent on the radio system. Okay, rec, I combined rec and pickleball. So rec had a request to do, what they're trying to do is fund their master plan so that they can go from park to park, create an inventory of what they have, and then a schedule of replacement while also canvassing the community around those parks as to what they would like to see in their local park. And so their idea is, it's essentially a smaller master plan so that they would know this is step one, this is step two, so I need to go after this funding before I go after this funding, and so on, to redo their parks and playgrounds and capture what people want to see there. And then the balance of that, which would be about $40,000, would be eligible for rec to use on the pickleball requests that we got up to, right? So at the discretion of rec as to how that money gets parsed out. Mary and I talked about this morning. There's some economic development stuff that Chris had pointed out. Chris is out on paternity leave. And so I didn't want to guess honestly, but most of his stuff, you can do 2 projects for 100,000. So it would basically be up to 100,000 and whatever he felt were the lowest hanging fruit that would get us the most bang for our buck in economic development. Or this group can go and look and find economic development things and pick a la carte off of there what they think would be the most beneficial. And then lastly, we heard a lot about sidewalks. So 750,000 towards sidewalks to be determined.
Emery, did you have a question on economic development?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, just, would that be kind of that grant? Would that be something that would be looked into there?
So I didn't include that. These were project-based
Okay.
things. Doesn't mean that we can't, but I didn't include it in mine, mainly because of the administration of the program. So I think we'd have to figure out how we're gonna administer that. Probably, that becomes more complicated. When I looked at what other, like, I've seen cities and towns doing some of this, but they generally have a person. They've like either funded a position grant-wise, that's what they do, is work with local businesses on the different grants, and they're usually a bigger pot of money that they're starting with. But that's just anecdotal from what I've seen. And that was it, and that would leave us with a balance of 90,000. And whatever we choose to do, I think we should leave a little bit in the kitty at the end, not a lot, but enough so that if we had anything come up or we had a project that went over by, if we've allocated 100,000 and the project's gonna come out at 105, I don't wanna have to kill the whole thing and then it just doesn't seem to make any sense. The other thing that Mary and I talked about is you have this nurse in here.
Right.
It would, whether you wind up dipping into it or not, let's say that it turns out to be not, and I don't know where you're, we haven't.
No, I assume it's a not, unless
If it's a not,
all hell breaks loose.
we would recommend to the committee to leave that for the schools. Either for any overage on HVAC because of all the cost increases we're seeing, or to fund one of the other upgrades that we had seen in the capital plan or whatever we would choose to do as far as facilities or something like that.
Out of curiosity, was there a next project that, if this is your list, and I think it's a great start with the 90,000. What was next? Was there anything?
I just stopped.
Oh.
Skate park.
I was working on it
Okay.
yesterday and it was like 8
That was
o'clock at night. And I was
fine.
like, this is close enough for them to work.
That's
And
fine.
we'll circle back and we can
Okay.
talk it out.
So do we actually have any sort of estimate on how much a skate park would cost?
I guess it depends on the material, but anywhere, what do you think, like 50 to 100,000?
Oh, I think it's
More.
much more than that.
See, when we did it,
This was a while
we
ago.
fundraised, yeah, it was a while ago, it was wood.
I did a small one out of asphalt pavement and then it was metal and poly. And that was 220,000 and that was 5 years ago. So I would assume that you're gonna be probably at 250,000 at least.
Even just for a small, like basketball size.
Yeah, mine was a basketball size.
Yeah, because that's what we had before, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, maybe there's a different way to do it, maybe we bid it at the time when prices came in high. It was, we had one made out of wood, it got destroyed by the tornado, and then we came in with.
Just like when I look, I mean, I throw it out there just because I've been on this for,
Yeah, yeah.
20 years, but,
Yeah, no, and I.
and it's not
like
something
your
that's new, because we've met a
Yeah.
couple years
Yeah,
ago
that's
with the
yeah.
chief and everybody. But, even when I kind of went through this list, there's a lot of something for
Right.
teens,
Yeah, yeah.
schools, parks, teens. So that really served that
Absolutely.
population, but
Yeah.
I know.
The one in Munson that I had built just got expanded because there's so many kids use, I mean, it really is used.
It will be
constantly.
used here a
It
lot.
would-
Yeah,
It was
Kids
the
go
most,
to
it was the
Mendon
most
and
utilized
Worcester.
park that we had,
Yeah.
and then we had the super park at the time, which was also highly
Well,
utilized.
it's funny because I was just somewhere where there was a really good skate park and I was with somebody and he said, you can really tell a good town if they, and it was just, he was like, if they have a skate park, and I thought of you, but
Yeah.
I feel like we talked about it, but I haven't seen any.
Yep.
So, but besides the skate park, which I do like, anything else? Do people have questions on, or anything that we would like to maybe also add? And I know now we have some questions about the pay.
Yep.
I wouldn't mind talking a little bit about the One Grafton Common plan.
Yep.
I'm not sure if that needs to be funded with ARPA funds. I could see that coming from CPC.
Yep.
I'm very familiar with the project. I led the campaign to do it, so I'm pro One Grafton Common, but I was surprised to kind of see this suddenly. It seemed like it suddenly became an issue for some people, and I don't know if this would be my priority with ARPA, but maybe it's everybody else's priority, and that's fine. And again, it's not up to us, it's up to the select board. But I wouldn't mind allocating.
No, I agree. I think it's more slotted.
Other than that, I love this list. I think it does a really good job of meeting a lot of different needs in this town and
Yep.
meeting different people. And there's some rec, there's sidewalks, there's seniors, there's meeting our people who need some extra help with their food insecurity. So I love that. And I think-
Realistically, sidewalks,
Yeah.
what are we talking here? 750.
The one on Milford Road, I always, this.
I knew
we
I
have
was
a-
good at that
But we
one.
have it up, it's a good example of, that was $800,000.
Okay.
It's almost a mile.
Yep.
There was no easements, there was no takings of land, there's very few driveways, there was no utility locations, there was no tree removal,
Mhm.
minimal drainage, and it was $800,000. So
Okay.
I think we can do, in really on most other streets, you probably get maybe a half a mile. So the first thing we need to be, around North Street School,
Yeah, I know.
Yep.
which has, going north.
Mhm.
There's very little going down North Street. There's none once you get to North Street. Because there's money from Millbury Street programmed into, I think it's 2024 or 5. So we've got federal money to do that one from almost the Millbury line to the school.
Okay, right. I think I appreciate that it's the biggest nut outside of the school project, out of anything that you funded. So even though you don't get a lot of bang for your buck,
Yeah.
you are, obviously it was identified by a lot of people,
Yeah.
and you're giving the biggest chunk outside of that HVAC system. So even though it's not,
Yeah, no, it's.
Yeah.
it's-
I don't know,
it's gonna be-
it's kind of a bummer in a way, because it's so much money
Yeah.
and it's so little to us as far as, well, we're talking bang for your buck or return on investment. But to the neighborhoods that maybe get connected to it, it might be a huge.
No, I agree. I live off of Millbury. Or Milford. It's that sidewalk, it's like saved. My neighborhood walks up and down. It's
Yeah.
the best thing ever.
Yeah, well, and then
So-
North Street does get, because the common, it has
Yeah.
access, there's a lot. I think it's something you said at our last meeting. You were like, well, we can always do nothing, or you can try, you can start, so.
Yeah.
And people, that was overwhelmingly what people
Right,
wanted, so
right.
if we're gonna do a survey and listen to what people want, so.
and you're talking about going like towards Westboro, that direction?
No, we go down
Towards
North
the common.
Street.
Okay.
No, from the school, north on North Street. So the ending.
Away from the common.
Wait,
Away from
Away
the commons, like towards Westboro, yeah, yeah.
And then so you connect
So that's great, because that 95 North Street
Clearview,
thing,
right, then you have that park that's going
Yeah,
there,
right,
that- the stone gate.
I will say I walk that pretty much every day,
Yeah.
and it is a tough walk.
Yeah.
But not that it's about me.
No, no. that's-
But I
you know-
wouldn't-
you know what-
No,
you
but you're
know what
not
it's like
alone
to
in
walk
walking
It
there.
is,
It's
it is
cool.
very,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
pretty dangerous.
So for me, I thought sidewalks were pretty paramount in that study, so I
Yes.
wanted that to reflect in what our recommendations were. I think that the joint water project is pretty awesome because we've got 3 different entities now putting money into upgrading infrastructure, which I love to do that, so I'm really passionate about that project. And the food bank is my other kind of, I don't wanna see that go away. I think everything else is a gradation of looking at the other list, our survey, and then coming up with what I thought people would like. I know the seniors were big on the parking lot.
I had heard that a lot. I like the rec money also.
I'd like to see a little bit more with rec, but
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing a little more with rec.
And you can, and if we went that way, we can always recommend to the select board that we allocate up to $150,000 and then have the rec commission come back and say, here's the projects that we're doing with that money. You can always do something like that because they're living in that sphere and,
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's,
Well, and I was wondering too, could we just recommend the projects and then let
oh yeah.
people get paid the big bucks, figure out how much? Or no?
So
Well,
I think we're gonna run into trouble because
Okay.
then Canoyer's gonna come back and be like, oh, you owe me 1.2 million for that sidewalk. But Evan did, a $900,000 parking lot,
Right.
with pickleball courts elevated, second level.
Lit, yeah.
That does make,
Lights.
that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think we should have, I think that
Up to is
up
good.
twos
Yeah.
are good.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
do think some of these are gonna come in and we're, the water project's gonna be $500,000, and it's gonna be the project. But I think things like, let's say you funded, the parking lot here, it comes in at 447. Well, the balance of that's gonna stay available as long as the feds don't claw the money back with the change of administration and God knows what they do. But let's say that happened, well, that now goes into that kitty that we left, and we would have to come back and say, the spring or whatever it is, and say, here's our final recommendations to use up that money. Sorry, and I know I'm talking a lot. The other thing I had thought of yesterday was you could also do something like any remaining balance from any of these projects goes towards sidewalks. Or something of that nature, right? Something that is gonna eat up all of the money.
But I sidewalks, of course, with DPW, we need to do something with this whole, the parking and traffic flow here.
Yeah.
And if we're gonna spend something, now is the time to do it.
Mhm.
Get that right and maximize the space we have and keep the, there's only gonna be more kids down there, not less. Right? So,
Yeah, now it is a good time to do it.
So are you advocating for more money? to
Well,
that?
just, I think if we think, everything goes up and down, especially, that's largely oil driven, the cost of asphalt. So this year would be really expensive. 2 years from now might be, so less expensive, but no, just trying to figure out, get somebody, a real traffic person who knows how to. Because even just like you say, we had a debate about rotating the buses around the thing, and I thought it wouldn't work, but it did. So somebody that can tell us this is what we have, this should be the flow, because the parents are gonna do what the parents are gonna do.
Right.
And
Well, and I have, in all my meetings with the seniors, I mean, yes, it's important and the seniors need to have their space, but it's a public parking lot. So we're gonna
Yeah.
figure out how to coexist. And if we can do that with infrastructure, that would be even better for
Yeah.
both Jay and my sanity, probably. But it was fun. I went to the COA board and there's a gentleman, he goes, I have a question. And I said, is it about parking? He goes, yeah. So, but yeah, that would be good to get something done. I think that if the group skews away from, let's say, one Grafton comment, that let's talk about other funding sources. So I would go after that as a CPC project in the fall.
I would agree.
I would agree, and I will come and advocate for it with it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think it's a historical building and I think it meets that.
Okay.
I agree.
So my only question then would it be, like, it's one of these, some of these things, it's like robbing Peter for Paul, so
Right.
it's the
Yep.
same, it's, well, not the same plot, but.
Yeah,
So
so-
does it help CPC if this little bit, this nugget gets taken care of this way, and then they have more for historical, I don't know.
But I feel like they have.
They have more and they never get enough requests, it
Okay.
seems to me. I mean.
Well,
I don't know that, so.
They have
And
like
they have
1.2
more, they
million
have
right
a
now.
smaller scope on what they can fund.
Mhm.
We have this one-time money where I feel like it's a chance to possibly do
Okay,
a skate park, which would also possibly fund some CPC, but,
And,
you know,
and I think the other thing to keep in mind, let's say we stopped out talking about One Grafton Common and we were gonna do 100,000 for a skate park, right, towards it. Well, then there's other pots of money that this offsets, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
100,000 from this, 100,000 from CPC, 100,000 from capital, and now we've got ourselves a skate park.
let's do like Thursday, or is it?
What, the CPC application?
for fall.
I'm kidding.
Are you really? Because I don't know. Because now I've got other work to do tonight. If we take this off of here. Evan's writing a grant on midnight.
Well,
Oh,
I
and
mean,
that's fine.
again, this is above,
Oh, I was
this
thinking
isn't
skate
what
park, I wasn't
our
thinking of.
Oh,
charge really is, but I'm thinking about One Grafton Comp, is that like our biggest need? Like, I feel like this got raised. I know that that was something we were talking about when we raised to make it an accessible building.
Yep.
And
So-
it,
so this is, remember, this is Evan's list of what's
Yeah.
on my desk and would be
I
great
know,
if
but
I could find it.
I'm questioning where that came from, I guess. I just don't know if that is our top need in this town to be funding with.
It's something
right
that
now.
I'm dealing with right now.
I'm sorry you're dealing with.
So if the group wants to say, let's go after a different funding with that, I will take no offense to that.
I think part of it is that whoever's, I'm gonna say this
Allowed
the- I'm like, I'm gonna say it's the wrong way, but you said it before I did.
I will say, I have no,
It's whoever's the loudest in the town that comes forward and asks for money. That's
Oh,
what's on your
absolutely.
desk.
That's the only reason we're talking about pickleball.
Which is
but
fine.
that's okay. Yeah.
Literally
Hey,
the
those
only
emails
reason
are
we're
coming
talking
on strong.
about
It
it.
is.
So, right, so,
But at least to me with the pickleball, it was obviously quite a few people. It's a recreation thing. It benefits everybody. This is a building with private businesses in it and it's a slippery slope for
Absolutely.
me,
It's
so
not.
but
It's not.
I
I'm-
think I'd rather see that.
Sure.
money go
But then
to-
you have to, you're gonna try to get it on the.
Yeah.
Okay.
it's,
it
I've
works.
met with the leasing, if nothing is catastrophic, even if we
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
got things rolling in the spring, like, it's not the end of the world. I
Sure.
just
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know, it'd be
Well,
easier to fund it this way. I totally
sure
agree.
would.
I'm sorry. And if you guys disagree with me,
No,
I'm
I work
fine.
it.
I
No,
don't-
I'm fine. I wasn't married to it being out of ARPA, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
And
I
if
guess
you-
it's
and
the
if-
out of ARPA, but again, that's not my role.
I've already removed it.
Thank
It's
you.
gone.
Sorry.
So back to me,
Yes,
if now that it's growing down there.
Yep.
I mean, I didn't think to put skate park on here because I know it's a certain segment. However, then I appreciate that, I think it's reflected in that the teens, the
Yeah.
folks are looking for something for teens. But, we were talking earlier, like this whole notion of like shovel ready, we have to spend this by when? 2025, 26?
2026,
Yeah.
December 31st, 2026.
Yeah. Where
I'm not
would it
worried
be?
about, if you,
That's what I've been working on for the
if
last
this
2
group
years.
says, look, let's go after a skate park and we should free up $250,000. Then I think that's what we do. We figure out how to get it to $250,000. And
So we couldn't do like the 100,000 over there. And then I would work, we would work on other.
oh,
things.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You could take 100 right now towards the skate park and then go after capital money and go after CPC money.
Or like we did last time with the little cans, quarters.
Absolutely. You could,
That's back when we did the
you can,
grassroots
you
stuff.
can mix and match.
I like that idea.
It's been something that I've been working on for a while, and you probably all haven't heard so much about it, but one of the issues has been where, right?
Yep.
And I've been meeting, I've met with Skip recently, we've looked up here, but it's just me kind of driving, trying to sort this out. I think we could find a spot if there were more.
Yeah.
If we knew that there was some money
There's a
somewhere too,
problem.
yeah.
So do we want to put skate park in here?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I
good with
think so.
I think it really,
And
That's
what are we
awesome.
thinking?
I think it was
I'll find it.
beneficial to have the 90 still, to your
Yeah.
point of if there's money needed elsewhere. And if not, then we'll take it.
I'd love to help you.
Or, no, I was thinking to keep your 90 down below, whatever you want.
Shush.
I would go
maybe
for,
150.
I would go for 150. 40 leaves us a buffer. We're gonna be under on some things. We've got some cushion for the school project or another school project if we need it
I said
later,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Presumably. Okay, back to premium pay,
Mhm.
yes?
I think we first have to define who was getting it before you can even discuss.
Yep.
anything
Sure.
else.
So do we want to limit it to first responders, that category?
I'll
Sounds
be
like
abstaining from the rest of the conversation.
That's fine.
I can be a direct benefit. So. I'll choose myself.
I mean, I think if it throws a wrench into the schools having maintenance there, even though it's unfortunate, it is what it is, right?
I might argue regardless, it's gonna throw a wrench, but maybe that throws a bigger wrench.
But like
I
of
would
other
first
schools,
choose
so I'm saying yes, because I've heard like this is happening, right?
Yep.
That first responders have been getting money, and our guys are whatever. So have schools been getting some of this from ARPA, do you think?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, so I
Maybe
mean,
Jennifer and Nicole.
so maybe it wouldn't
might
be a
know.
wrench then, you know what I
Let's-
mean? Because these
Right,
guys
we
have,
just say
they can say, oh,
there's
by the way,
precedent.
Mildred got it and Upton, I don't know. I'm
So,
just not a-
Jennifer, what are you seeing out there in?
I haven't seen anyone give it to school employees. I mean, that doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. I mean, we have 20 clients in Massachusetts and then none of them have given it to school employees. But there's other cities and towns maybe that have, but I haven't heard of that. You haven't either, right, Evan? I don't think.
I haven't on any of my
Yeah.
lists. So they're going around about ARPA.
And have they gone beyond first responders?
Some have,
So
some haven't.
some have, some haven't. Yeah, I see,
I wonder how they manage.
like some cities, like especially in my, and this is anecdotal, but I think cities did a lot more as far as like every employee gets $1,500, but they were also getting,
a lot
you know, $30 million, $40 million. It was
Right,
a
right.
lot bigger nut to deal with. It seems to me that the smaller communities are the ones that got a smaller amount of money tended to make it more hyper-focused.
I just did a quick search on my listserv because I knew what had come up over the years, but it looks like, I don't see anybody that said that they've done it, but I haven't. That's a very small sample.
Because I think that's my concern is like the precedence has been set somewhat for first responders and perhaps it hasn't, you know, for the school employees or. Not that we have to follow that lead, I'm just saying that should.
No, you're right.
Jennifer, what are your other town, out of your sample size of 20 or 28, whatever, I can't remember what number you just said, but what's your sample size doing for premium pay? Is anybody doing that?
I have a few that are doing it, but they're not calling it premium pay. They're calling it like COVID response pay, just because they're doing it under the revenue replacement, which is essentially what you'll do as well. So, you know, it just kind of takes away the parameters that are required under the premium pay. You know what I mean? Because there's certain parameters that you have to follow. You have more flexibility because you're under the 10 million. So I have some that are just doing first responders. I only have a few that are doing this, just so you know. So a few are considering doing just first responders. Then I had a few that did it a lump sum for anyone that worked in person that didn't work remotely. So they included, you know, people in the town hall that worked in person, people if they were manning like the senior center and doing meals. So I've seen it both ways. Some it's pretty much just public safety and public health. And then others, it's anyone that worked in person and didn't work remotely.
And do you see the amount per employee? Is it this? Because we have 5,000 down to 500. I know you just put numbers on there, but
Yep.
is it that large of a range? Have you seen
Yeah,
that?
I mean, the range that Evan talked about is kind of what I've seen too. So I've seen some as low as like in the smaller towns, like 750 to 1,000. And some of the call departments even lower, like Evan did, and then up to I think we've seen up to 7,500, which was that your high too, 7,500? Yeah,
in his town, but what he's.
That's what I saw, yeah.
that's what you
I
saw
opened-
too. Yeah, that's the highest one I've seen as well. But the range is on target with what I've seen.
How many?
You know, they're all wrestling with what you're wrestling with, just so you know. Kind of this like, once you open the door, who becomes eligible, not wanting to slight people because everybody worked hard during the pandemic. So it's tough.
How many, I guess, because we were back in school in 21.
Mhm.
So how many town employees that did work in, like, actually in person?
I think probably all of them,
All of them?
Yeah.
pretty
That
close,
is-
yep.
Yeah, it would be.
How many?
I'm just on the town side,
Mm.
say 85-ish probably would be eligible.
550.
Say 550. Better than 550 employees.
There's a total of, we have a total of 860 employees for the town Grafton.
Part-time.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right, catch everybody. And that's the other thing is your eligibility window, like those were Mary and I talking this morning about what the window is, and that's adjustable as well, but.
I think you should give it to your volunteer town officials who had to work during the pandemic. Oh, no, no.
I'm gonna struggle with this
I'm
one.
still in support of it.
I'm in support of it, but
Do we want to take a vote just on this? I mean, Paul already says he has to abstain. We could take a vote and then it can go to the select board and that's their job.
Right.
but we have to give the over and not to exceed.
Yeah, not to exceed.
Yeah, that's why I did it this way, because I don't want it to be just I haven't figured it out, you know, or here's a pot of money, figure out a divvy. I think we need to be a little more finite in what our
Yeah.
recommendation to the board is.
You're gonna vote.
I don't know.
It's a total no win. At least,
For me,
yeah, I will, but yeah,
To vote?
for both, you vote against it.
Yeah.
You
I
know
just-
how it works. You're anti-fire
I
police,
wasn't-
which I'm not,
right.
but I
Alright.
vote for it. Oh, I obviously don't care about.
I
school
wasn't,
nurses.
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna, I
All
was
right,
hoping
we
we
don't
weren't
have
gonna
to,
do
I'm just,
specific.
I don't know. I'm not really in favor of this. I would be, it just, there's a, I guess I need a little more,
Would it be any better if it was less? Like,
it's
or no,
not that, it's,
just the whole notion.
I
of it.
guess
That's
I'm
what I was
just
saying.
curious why,
Everybody-
first of all, and this is
Can't.
awful, but to me, those are the people that their job is to go into really dangerous situations. They were in an additional dangerous situation. I don't know, I sound like a jerk. It's exactly what Jay said.
Yeah.
Where somebody
No.
whose job is normally, I work for seniors, I'm not
Right.
expected to all of a sudden have to,
Right. Well,
That to
I think
me
that's the
is a
argument, right?
hazard or,
Is that there's a level of additional risk that wasn't really, yes, it's part of the job, but it really wasn't part of the. I get it. I'm just saying, obviously, this is above and beyond what was expected of
anybody.
anybody. Yep. Yep.
So I would say, I guess I'll bow out and I would say we bring this, we add it to our list and I would leave it to our wonderful men and women on the select board.
Another thing to consider, I don't know, again, I guess it doesn't matter because it's not the numbers. I was just thinking if you shrunk that, so for me in healthcare, going into work March of 2020, it was crazy.
Yeah.
But by June of 21, not as much. So, do you narrow that window for folks, for police and firefighters? I lived it as well, not in that capacity, obviously, but it was pretty nerve wracking.
Yeah, no, I agree. I worked with food distribution. I stood outside handing people food. We were scared to death because we had no idea. But by June 30th, when we were doing it, we felt better.
I suppose it'll just make the amount because potentially less, because potentially there are fewer employees, but it's not
It's
changing the
gonna
notion
be-
of it.
I think, given the number here, it's nominal
Yeah,
by the
Okay.
time you
Okay.
actually call them out. in the
I
mix.
just wasn't sure if it'd make it more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you were shrinking the date range.
I think it's more about
The full-
equity than it is about the amount, in my, to me. I mean, we could change those numbers, but still some get a benefit and some do not. You know, some are getting recognized and some are not.
Well, I would think that the select board would have the same problem that we're having, I would think. Even if you say you can spend up to 150,000. You're it.
I'd pass the buck to them though, because it's our job just to make a recommendation.
So
Is
the,
my, I
the-
mean,
the-
and Evan, you do seem like this is coming and this is something you feel pretty. Seems like you feel strongly about it. Yeah, you didn't delete it like Grafton one, Grafton comment.
I mean, actually, I'll bring
no,
up-
because that's part of my job though, is to advocate for the employees and these are my
Right.
employees. And so
Well,
from that standpoint, yes. And I get it. Yep, there are other employees. I have other employees too. They do different jobs. They have different organizing bodies. So I wanted to do my due diligence on this. But if I could I'll make a secondary recommendation. If this group is kind of all over the map on COVID response pay, because that's what I've now changed the title to. If we're gonna talk about, if we don't want to maybe do that here because it's a divisive issue or a question that we think the select board may be better able to handle, I would take it out of the spreadsheet. We can vote the rest of those items and we can say, we have no recommendation on this, but this was brought to the committee. And here you go, select board, now you.
I'll just add one more thing, though. It was an item that came up in the survey a number of times. I don't have a count, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't wind up being an overwhelming
but it was
number,
there.
but it was there.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know another thing that was on,
specific to first responders.
Yep.
Is what I meant.
Yes,
I know another item that was on there that I don't see is more towards the mental health
yes.
piece. Yeah,
I struggled with that because we are not
Right.
equipped to
No.
supply mental health. Not really. I mean,
that would be my only thought would
Yeah.
be is, yes, they did, but I think if you did mental health, I think it would help. I think it would benefit more people.
Grafton Police Department
I know they
just
are.
got a grant
Yes, I know
to
that.
have, someone ride around.
a
with them.
social worker.
Yes, for
Well,
certain.
And that's helping
calls.
them.
Yes,
Could, that was more helping, like,
Yeah.
No, this is helping people if they're coming to like a domestic
Right.
abuse.
Yeah.
Or they're coming in from
Right.
somebody who,
things that the police really
Yeah.
shouldn't, it
Yeah.
shouldn't be a law enforcement
Right.
response, it should be a
Right.
mental health response, but the number you call is law enforcement, so.
right.
it's that
yeah,
co-response.
So if you did take this out and you did say to the select board, well, we also were, considering the COVID response as well as mental health, I really do think, and I think just from my own kids and other people in town, I think mental health is huge. I think a lot of kids and adults are struggling still.
So Jennifer or Nicole, are you seeing other towns spending money on mental health? And if they are, what are they doing?
Yeah, definitely. So some are bringing in mental health clinicians for both the community and for their employees. So we have some that are pairing with police. But yeah, we've seen that, I would say, in at least maybe 60% of the communities. Mental health is a big one.
Okay. So besides just adding like a social worker to, response, and then you said, so are other towns directing the mental health response? Like, how do you do it outside of your employees, right?
So
So let's say you have mental health that cover the town employees and the school employees. How do you provide that to the public?
So the town of Franklin, for example, has a contract through Advocates. So Advocates is coming in and providing that mental health support, both to employees in the town, but also to community members in the town. So they're doing it through a contract. So, and that's just one example, but so some communities are doing it through existing nonprofits or social service agencies with, you know, within their jurisdiction that they already kind of have established relationships with.
Yep.
And, you know, I think the biggest thing that we've seen and heard people talk about is the wait times to get the mental health assistance. So even if they already have programming, it's not enough because people are waiting 3-4 months to get, you know, just a counseling appointment. So they're trying to kind of beef up those services in the communities to get people help faster. And then we've seen some like train the trainer stuff too. We have, I think it's Townsend or Pepperell maybe, you know, folks coming in and doing mental health awareness training for certainly police and fire and emergency responders. We've seen that as well.
So I think if we were gonna look at mental health, we would have, so Advocates is doing our co-response, let's call it social work. So I think if we were going to look at mental health, we probably would have to reach out to an organization like Advocates and see what that looks like. As far as what the specifics of the program are, right? So how do you figure out who gets access? How do you know, because we're trying to, like, let's say, reduce wait times in the community. One, this money has an expiration date, so, you know, we want to be careful that we're not doing a project that we have to fund forever because we may not have that funding. But also, I think we'd have to figure out like what is it, how there's got to be, and the nice thing is that if you have a nonprofit or an organization like Advocates, like this is what we're doing in this town, this is what we're doing in this town, and kind of give us some a la carte. So the other thing we could hypothetically do is do the rest, hit pause on this, that gives you essentially a $200,000 kitty, and reach out in the meantime to an Advocates or someone like that and say, or I can reach out to Franklin or get exactly what they're doing, or, you know, Jennifer can certainly help or whatever, and figure out what does that program even look like? Because I come from the disability health background and I know about mental health, but I have not had to stand one up.
We've, I think, got some balls rolling in this direction
Okay.
where we partner well. We've had the past 3 years a partnership with Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services,
Okay,
which has been fantastic. This coming year, we've been in discussions with them about piloting a program to provide for mental health, basically a clinic setup. Where it would start at the end of the school day and go into the evening hours, be based out of the high school, very much along the lines of what we're talking about.
okay,
We have so many instances where through Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services, we know a family needs services.
yeah,
We tie in the wraparound, we're all set for that, but they've got to wait 5 weeks in their crisis. So it
Yeah.
just doesn't.
doesn't work. Yeah.
We're trying to eliminate the 5 months
Okay,
wait.
yeah,
So we're not fully developed, but
okay.
we very much along these lines.
So would the group like to hit pause on this conversation, get some more information on what we could do for, you know, $150,000?
Once we get up and running, it would be all ideally 90-something% funded through insurance.
Yep.
So we weren't even looking for money really, but
We could maybe
anyhow,
expand
we
the
can, now
program.
if we expand it, there might be some startup costs, but we've got a space, we've got a lot of things in place that we can take advantage of.
And we could, even beyond just people with kids in the school system. we could
Yeah,
expand it.
this would obviously, I haven't wrapped my head around that.
Right,
but,
right, yeah.
I don't see why we couldn't
Okay,
approach it as I don't know if Franklin takes it as a school issue or.
I don't think it's a school issue. I can talk, I know Jamie, the town manager, pretty well.
Okay.
If you want, I can reach out, and find out what they're doing.
sure,
That came up as the example.
Yeah.
yes, okay,
That we were going off of.
all right, great. So is that where we want to, we just want
I
to,
think we can pause.
I would
Yeah, and
pause. I would feel more, I don't know.
Same.
Again, I don't want to be the bad guy.
I think I already am.
You're
Well,
good tonight. I like it.
this is great for me, I have 2 bad guys at the table, so.
We'll put it to you.
We'll resolve the my,
That's true, that's true.
my issues. I'm just gonna tell them, listen, we had to fund pickleball and you don't get any money.
Yeah.
No, so, what I would like, if, and we do not have to go with my list, but, okay, good, 'cause that's what we're gonna go with. So, if we,
Bring it down.
so what we can do is, again, if we're putting the pause on this, right? I could then, so take this $2.4 million of what would be remaining here, right? 2.4. Yeah, there's 200,000. Okay. I'm looking at you, Mary. You're not giving me my normal nod like my math is right. So if we took the rest of that and made that the recommendation to the select board for this month, and then came back to the table to talk about, mental health v. COVID pay. Let's call it that way.
I like that. When are you planning to do this tomorrow night? Is that on the agenda? You want, okay.
Yeah. Like to figure out what we're doing and
Yeah, no, I
get
just,
going.
I would like to comment.
It's on the agenda.
It's on the
Yeah.
agenda.
Yeah. I put it on there, it would go one of two ways, right? So either. I have
Right, he was
something
very
to do-
confident that we were gonna have something settled tonight.
I worked on this yesterday for like 4 hours, like.
I know,
This is the
it was
list.
on our agenda and I was like, oh,
Yeah,
but I think this, like I said, I think this is a well-rounded, it funds some must-haves, and there is a little bit of, I think when we started, we wanted to have a little bit of nice, but I'm gonna Christmas light. You forgot
And I
about it.
think it's
You know, you don't
responsive
even
to
have
the.
plugs out up here?
Yeah.
I got all the problems
Yeah.
to fix first. I almost bought like all kinds of Christmas decorations last year. Burgers like, there's no electricity outside, right?
Yeah, I was fine, yeah.
What?
So I think this is a very well-rounded, and I like our pause.
I think you're taking it to account the survey, which is
Yeah, it's
Very
responsive to the
important.
survey for sure.
the
Yeah,
point of doing it.
yeah, but I also think it really does reach a wide variety of
Mhm.
town.
Yeah, that was definitely
think
on my
that is-
mind.
yeah.
When I was putting together the preliminary list was, how do we reach as many people?
Right. So, okay, so do we want to take a vote of, can I have a vote to approve the recommendations that are ahead of us totaling? Oh, shoot. never mind.
2.4 million.
2.9.
2.4.
2.9.
It's 2.9?
Yeah, add up the cost.
Oh, uh-oh.
Hold on. Oh, yeah, that's
Oh,
my
yeah.
bad. I'm doing the balance.
Yeah.
See, Mary, that's why I'm looking at
That's
you.
why I double checked.
Thank God, 2.9 million.
So did you make the motion? or
I
you need a
didn't,
motion?
I'm needing a motion.
Okay, so, and what is the
Two-
number?
2.9 million.
I move that we recommend the 2.9 million, the TA recommendations up to $2.9 million.
Second.
Select board.
All right, motion made second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Great work.
Thank
Thanks,
Thanks for
John.
putting it together.
Yeah, that was really helpful.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for the discussion. Not being afraid to bring up some tough thoughts. All right, anything else? Oh, so do we,
Next week.
next, I was just gonna say that. And do we want to mention correspondence? I know it's not on our agenda, but I.
There's 4,000 emails about
Yeah,
pickleball.
I was.
I was
Service.
just for.
Well, I
As
thought
long as there's no more.
I thought we could
Yeah.
segue that
Yeah.
into when we were talking about the rec.
Okay, we
Plan
kind of didn't
pickleball.
mention, we did hear an outpouring from many concerned citizens about the pickleball court on Ferry Street. And we appreciate their outreach
Yep,
and we
absolutely.
considered it and have included it in our recommendations. So thank you for your kind and plentiful emails about pickleball.
Please stop.
We're good now. I get them twice.
Right.
I get them forwarded
All
to
right.
another account. All right, so our next meeting, because we're almost, now we're kind of nearing, I can see the end of our charge here. What will give us time to kind of research some mental health? Do we want to do what we've been doing a month? Do we want to do another month? Do we want to do August 20, or are you away, August 22nd? You know. Let's do August 22nd, or the 15th, I guess.
I'm away.
Oh, no, can't do the 15th.
Me too.
22nd. 22nd it is.
I'm away the 22nd, but
Oh, no.
you can still have the meeting by all
You
means.
just can't do any math.
No matter.
Or we can do the 29th if.
Yeah, I don't,
No, that's the day before school starts.
Oh.
It's a tough night for Jay. No,
Whatever, doesn't matter.
it actually doesn't matter to me if we do it at 5 o'clock. I like this 5 o'clock.
Yeah,
You want to do the
5 o'clock.
29th?
That's good.
Is it better for you?
Yeah.
yeah.
Perfect.
that's fine.
29th, and we'll have a little pre-back to school celebration.
Party. Okay.
I'll bring the sparkling cider.
Jennifer, Nicole, you have any thoughts or? Or,
Oh, I mean, you guys have done a great job. I mean, like you said, it's a well-rounded list. I mean, it's nice that you did incorporate things that were, put forward in the survey because you had a good turnout on the survey. No, I think you guys have done a remarkable job. You've covered just kind of holistically so many areas of the town.
Jesus.
Wait, sorry, my computer fell right. Boy, I was saying something so brilliant too. I'm alive.
Are you okay?
I'm alive, just my computer fell.
Your
So yeah,
computer
no,
okay?
you guys have been incredibly organized and have done a really good job.
Can we get that in writing? Really, I'm writing about what an awesome job you did.
Leave that for my eval.
Yeah.
Spring.
100%. All right, thank you.
All right,
We'll see you in a month
yes,
and
thank
a
you.
little bit more.
Thank you both.
Thank
All right.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, bye, everybody.
So he did use.